Okay, so just like when we implemented the blur function for the title, all of that logic is basically going to be happening here under published, the publish date value changed. So what we need to do is have the new date. It's going to function a little bit differently. So I want to create a new variable, and we'll call this new date, and just initialize that as an empty string. And so we'll come over in here, and the first thing that we want to do is create a new JavaScript date object. And the reason is because the date that comes through in the argument here, new value, isn't the same. It's not the same format as what we want. We have to parse it in order to be able to show it on the screen like we did under the data entry portion. We have to parse it a little bit to show it on the screen like it was initially in the unaltered state. So we're going to create a new date. We're going to pass in the new value. And then the new date variable will equal a little bit of parsing that we have to do the date. So the first thing that we'll do is take a look at the date and get the month. Now this month is indexed at 0, so we're going to add 1 to the month in order to get what we need. And then from there, we will append our little slash so it looks like we want it to. And then from there, we'll look at the date again and do get date. This gives us the day of the week, or not the day of the week, but the day within the month. So that's what we want there. Another slash, and then we'll get the full year. So dt get full year. So now we have a date formatted exactly like what it looked like when before we touched anything. All right, so then we'll come in here and say that we need to take a look at the date control again. And in the same way that we did with the text, we're going to update the UI to the unaltered state. And so what we'll do now is apply the style sheet for the dirty state. So we'll do a remove CSS class on date control. And we're just going to take off the live input edit. And then we'll add a CSS class from the date control, live input dirty. And finally, now we're ready to go in and call our server-side method. So we'll do page methods. And we'll call this update publish date. And again, just like we were doing before, we'll reach into our hidden input element, book ID, to get the primary key of the item that we're working on. We'll pass that in, and we'll pass in the new value, which was brought to us as an argument to this function here. And then we'll call date success, and then we'll reuse that fail function in case something went wrong. So the last thing we have to do is implement the function for date success. And we have a response argument here. And so as you would guess, we need to get reference to that date control. So we'll go ahead and do that. We will also take a look at the dates container that holds our current value. So we've got that now. I'm going to take off the dirty state. We're going to hide our web date chooser control and show the control that will just display the data itself. So we'll look at the date control, and we're going to remove the live input dirty. We'll also remove from our date the none class. So now this will show it onto the screen. And finally, we will add to date control the none CSS class to hide it off the screen. And then we'll take a look at the response. If the response comes back as true, we'll take the date and we'll say inner text equals new date. And if you remember, new date was a variable that we set aside on the value changed function. And we created a variable for that outside of the scope of the method so we could get to it here. We'll set the inner text of our date control to what the new date is. And then if the response failed, again, what we'll do is just we'll just alert out a message to the user. All right, so the server encountered an error while trying to update the publish date. Fair enough. So there's one last thing that we need to do, and that is update the code behind. And basically, we're doing exactly the same thing with update title. I'm going to copy this, paste it down here, and call this update publish date. This will be a date time. And instead of looking at title, okay, so that's what we have for our publish date. Let's go ahead and run it, cross our fingers, and hopefully everything will work out as, okay, so what we need to do is I took out that display none, or assigning the class to our control because we needed to see it in order to get to the properties. So date control will start off with the class, again, of none. Good. So now we see Craig's book that's still being read out of the cache. And we see published. And I can hover over this. I'm getting the green outline, which is great. If I click on it, I get nothing because there's one more step we have to do. Come into page load, and we have to give it a value. So the published date value equals this book published date. That's better. So now when we hover over it and switch over, we get our date here. We can choose what we want. We'll just make it today's date, so 11/24/2008. Blur on that. It should update what we've got, and it should also update the UI. But we have an error down here, so let's figure out what's going on. It says it can't evaluate what's going on. Let me pause this, figure out what's going on, and I'll come back and explain it to you. Okay, I figured out what it was, and it was just a silly mistake. If you'll notice, we have a spelling mistake over here in the name of this function. So if I copy this guy and paste it in here, now run it, we should be pretty much good to go. So I can come into this date, choose a new one. We'll choose today's date and blur out of there. And there we go. Even persisted. So that is a live form. That's implementing the live form Ajax pattern using the Infragistics controls. I hope this has been enlightening to you. I hope that hopefully you found some concepts in here that'll show you ways that you can find all kinds of uses for this. So thanks a lot for checking this out. This is Craig Shoemaker. Hopefully be talking to you soon.